Can everybody hear okay? I think we'll go ahead and get started here with our final panel. I'm super excited. This is our Youth Voices panel on creating educational, economic, and civic opportunities. My name is Nick Martin, and I'll be moderating this session. I'll briefly introduce myself, share some details about the session, and then get started by introducing this truly fantastic panel of young people that we have here today. So I have a background as an educator, technologist, and social entrepreneur, also with expertise in peace building and international development. I'm also an IOIF Global Fellow 2009 and very excited to be part of the IOIF family. They have been fantastic to me. A couple years ago, I founded an organization called Tech Change. We do technology training for social change. The bulk of that training is done entirely online. And we work and teach courses in things like technology for emergency management, how to use a mobile phone for international development. So a number of the technological innovations that we've been talking here today, we actually teach courses on them. And we train people of all ages. We do young people, but we also do people as old as 70. And I think it's exciting to see so many people coming to us wanting to learn at all ages about technology and its impact for social change. So before I ask the panelists the first question, a couple thoughts about today's session. This is the final session, so in many ways this is going to be a response to what we've heard already today from so many fantastic panelists. I've asked each of the panelists here to also reflect on their own stories, their own narratives, and thinking about what made a difference in their lives that drove them to create the kinds of change, the kinds of impact that they have. And so I'm excited to have them share. And then finally, we'll open it up to the audience, and you all can have a chance to interface with these supremely interesting and talented young people. So let's go ahead and introduce who we've got here. So I'm going to start here with Naadiya. Naadiya, a fellow IOIF alum, class of 2009, Global Fellowship. She is the co-founder of South African Women in Engineering, and promotes educational awareness, personal and professional development of women in environment and in the engineering environment. She has won all kinds of awards for her work and is also a member of the IOIF board. Next we have Pedro. Pedro is the assistant food and beverage manager of Hilton at a Hilton in Orlando, Florida. Originally, Pedro is from Brazil, and he's going to tell us more about his background. But he is the chairperson of the hotel's Blue Energy Committee, where he has worked closely with local community and organizations on projects such as Project Graduate, Project Backpack, and a number of others, which he's going to tell us more about. Next up, we've got Dina. I love Dina's energy and enthusiasm. She is fantastic. She is from Mexico. She's the director of the United Nations Youth Association in Mexico, but she's also the founder of Deportes para Compartir. Wow. Sports to Share. And Sports to Share empowers teachers from a variety of school settings to foster social and environmental awareness while also teaching about teamwork and fair play. So excited to hear your story, Dina. And then finally, we've got Tanya with us. Tanya has worked across all kinds of public, private, and civil society sectors for 10 years in Mozambique. She has served as the advisor to Mozambique's Minister of Planning and Development. And currently, she is a member of the Ministry of Transportation and Telecommunications Task Force. So she also just got in yesterday from Mozambique and is leaving tomorrow. So it is a very tight time frame. All right, so that's the lineup. So I'm going to ask the first question here. And I'm going to ask this to all the panelists to maybe share a few minutes. How well did your education help prepare you for who you are today? So Naadiya, I'm going to start with you.
So my background, my engineering, I got a civil engineering degree as an undergrad and a master's degree in engineering as well. And engineering is a fantastic degree because it gives you such a diverse skill set. It's a way of thinking and problem solving. And I think this is why I promote engineering, and I want every person out there to go and get an engineering degree. Hopefully some of them stay and work in engineering, but others contribute to such a diverse array of jobs. I also heard that you were an engineer. Yet you had an engineering background.
I am.
So that's always interesting to note that engineers creep up in the strangest places. But I think that that being fantastic, I think that also just life experience and there's education that's inside a classroom, and then there's education that is outside a classroom. And I think sometimes the education outside a classroom is way more valuable than what you learn inside.
That's fantastic. Okay, Pedro, you're next.
I am an engineer graduated that did not stick with engineer.
That's okay.
But like Beth Page said, she said earlier, I'm not sure if she's still here. She was one of the panelists, and she said she met this guy who had a passion for garbage in Jordan. I had a passion for hospitality. I want to make people happy, you know? And I come from a family of politicians and masons, and I'm unfortunately the only man born in 3 generations. And they had my life mapped out for me, and I was going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Well, I was an engineer, and when I finished, I came in an internship. Part of me wanted to check how hospitality was before I make that lifetime decision. But I needed to check it out for myself before I decide. And I started as a busboy like some of our CEOs did, and made my way to a restaurant manager.
And I'll ask as a follow-up, what inspired you to take action in your community and get involved in civic engagement?
You know, I wasn't ready for the question, but let's put it this way. Let's talk about, a lot of people mention genuinity. And you have to have your heart set on what your goals are, and you got to be loving what you do. Because once you're genuine and true to yourself, that passion is going to transpire, and that way you can inspire other people, and you have enough left to give back to other people. But if you're not happy with yourself, how can you touch other people and actually give back to other people? Because you're not complete yet. And
that's a great thought.
Pretty much it.
It's a great thought.
Thank you.
Okay, Dina, tell us about yourself.
I studied international relations in a very business-oriented school. So when I started doing a program for children about sports, my classmates told me, but really, what are you going to do? They didn't believe me. They thought I was sort of joking. But then I said, I'm really not joking. This is playing seriously. So my education was very important. And if you combine your education with what you really love and where you feel you're in your element, then you can make a true transformation for you and the people around you.
Great, and Tanya?
Thank you. I studied, I have a master's in economics from the University of Cape Town. And subsequent to that, I wasn't making enough money, and I thought, let me do an MBA, and I did an MBA. And, but, you know, I think that was not the most important aspect of my education. It was when I was 7 years old, I moved from Mozambique to a boarding school in Swaziland. I could not speak English. The English you hear today, I learned it, from class when people were talking, just turning around. And the military discipline in the boarding school, that is what made me who I am today. It was tough. It was hard. It was wake up at 5 in the morning. You have to clean up. And that for me was the main education. It was a life education. And
that carried over to your experience working in government, that type of preparation?
Yeah, I'm a bully.
I love it. I love it. Oh, it's fantastic to hear. And I think, like Pedro, I started out as a modern poetry major, worried that was too practical of a degree. So I got a degree in peace education and then decided to start a tech company. So I think I'm very grateful to my parents. I know that was something that we talked about this morning, for being patient with my path. And I maybe want to ask, is that a similar sense that you got support from your families and communities to pursue your passions?
Yes, I don't think that I'd be sitting here in front of you today without the support of my parents and my family, for two things. My mother's probably my biggest fan, followed close second, or probably in the same line as my dad, and always encouraging me. I mean, I'm a female from a very traditional background, and I'm traveling on my own, which is weird for a Muslim girl in most circles, and I'm an engineer, and there's nobody in my family that was an engineer before me. So half my family still thinks that engineers build bridges and lay bricks. It's not what we do. Just putting that out there. But if it wasn't for my parents and then the rest of my extended family to also keep me grounded, so that when I did achieve a success, it didn't get to my head. and that I still remain true to who I was. And I think that's really important. And that circle of trust that you have around you is pivotal.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears and ask another question. Today we've heard from a lot of fantastic companies and foundations, MasterCard, Hilton, Microsoft, Laureate. So we've heard a lot about making youth equal partners in development. And I'm really curious to hear from you all, what does equal partnership mean when somebody reaches out for a partnership, whether it's a corporation or a foundation, or even a mentor? What do you look for in a partner? What do you look for in a mentor? And what does that idea of equal partnership really mean to you? Who would like to start? I'll open it up here.
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah, maybe Naadiya, if you start, and then Pedro.
So for us at South African Women in Engineering, for us, equal partnership means that it's someone who shares the same vision that we do, and that works together with it. So from our funders and our donors, they're not just merely people who sign a blank check and walk away. They invest with their people to come and mentor our university students and our young graduates to getting into the trenches and speaking to our high school students about the different career opportunities within engineering. And for us, that is truly an equal partner. And then embedded within their companies, they have SA Women's teams. Just like we have an SA Women's team that will liaise with them directly. And so for us, I think that's the true meaning of equal partnership.
I like that thought. Not just money, but actually sort of buy-in from a fundamental level. And that partnership extends to having teams within organizations. Yeah, Pedro.
I'm sorry, I'm going to develop just a little bit more because
sure.
In my case, my goal, and that's the beauty of this, like we have all different people with different goals, different experience. We bring it all together for a common goal, but my goal is to turn into a leader within my not only my community, but also the company that I work for that I truly believe on. And every person needs a leader. I like finding leaders that take the mentorship level, that can have the time to identify, hey, you are great at this, you're not great at this, but you know what, we're gonna move you to this because this you're better. And once they find the right placement to everyone, that they can actually start teaching them. Because I'm a manager, but a manager will discipline, a manager will teach skills. And like Krishna said, I spoke earlier, we can teach people skills. The harder part is teach people how to care. And a true leader is someone that has the capability, sorry, of touching and inspiring people that make people want to get out of the way to make a difference. And on the long run, we as young leaders, we don't have the credibility, so we need to partner with you guys that actually have already the credibility and been through all we are trying to go through right now, so as you can help us to make us happen, bring our visions into a near future.
And I love that thought, that credibility, that notion of being taken seriously by a partner, so critical. And I think your story in particular is very inspiring because you're doing all kinds of great community engagement, social change work within a much larger organization. So that's fantastic. Dina, tell us, what does an equal partnership look like for you when you seek partners in your work for Deportes para Compartir?
Thank you, Nick. Deportes para Compartir promotes teamwork. So partnership for us means teamwork, to truly build together a vision that can take us to where we are looking at and we want to reach. And that implies also going through highs and lows, and also having a shared vision towards what we're dreaming of and putting it in tangible terms. So that's what we promote at all levels, with children, their communities, with private sector, public sector, other NGOs, and that's the only way that we can truly achieve a profound transformation.
And we were talking earlier, what inspires you in the first place to want to work with children?
Well, what do you want to be when you grow up? It has a lot to do with what we're talking about here on youth employment. If you dream since you're a child who you want to be what makes you happy in life? What is it that you can do for your community, feeling useful? That inspired me because me as a child, I was very energetic, maybe too much. And so
Not possible.
the channel of sport was a great channel. And it makes sense to work with children that have a lot of energy like I did, to help them also dream of what they want to be when they grow up.
That's great.
And
That's
have
really
it
great.
as a job.
That's fantastic. And finally, Tanya, what you've worked across so many sectors, the public, the private. You've worked in government. What do you look for in a partnership and also in a mentor?
Yeah, I'll give two examples of two mentors. I sit on the board of One Time Airlines. It's a JAC listed company. And 5 years ago, when I joined the board, the chairman didn't know me from a bar of soap. He literally sat with me for 10 minutes and he said, I want you on my board. And for me, that's a partner, that's a mentor who looks at you and looks at your potential. And that's somebody who invests in what you could be, not in what you are today. And the same applies to the Minister of Planning and Development. When I went back to Mozambique 27 years later, he literally hired me 10 minutes after our interaction. And he didn't know me, he didn't know what I could offer, but he just said there is potential. And for me, that is an equal partner. And I try to emulate that with my son. When he says to me, Mommy, I'm going to be the best soccer player in the world, I'm going to be the best cricket player in the world, I say, you already are. You are. You
I
just
love
are.
that thought. That's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah.
Okay, we heard earlier from William from Caterpillar. He was joking about worst practices for organizations and a sort of culture of being difficult to discuss failure. So I wonder if we could maybe ask the question to you all, and again, this is to everybody. What was a failure in your life that you had to overcome, maybe specific to the sort of employment sector? How did you overcome it? And any other wisdom you'd like to share in that notion of failure?
Okay,
Yeah,
I've got a fresh
Tanya, if you're ready.
experience.
If you're ready, let's do it.
I've got a fresh experience, and then Danny is actually she should know, she's my reference. I started a project not so long ago called Nkaringana. Nkaringana means once upon a time, and it's a storytelling project. I took all my savings and I threw it into that project, and I wanted to literally just lobby anything to do with human talent and human development around the youth. And it felt like a hot potato. It like literally, I lost all my money, and before I knew it, I had to go back into the workplace and get myself a job and a salary. But for me, the experience was, if I hadn't done it, I would still be saying, what if, what if, what if? And, but there was a lot of lessons to be learned, and today there is still so much potential that can happen from the project. So it's really about failing, and it wasn't my first failure. There's been a lot. There's been a lot. So just, yeah.
Other reflections on the challenge around failure? Yes.
I'm going to cite two quick examples. Like, first, the perception, which was from my mom's case at first, which whenever I decided to college degree and never had to work my whole life, because she said, you got scholarship, you don't have to work, I'll pay for your bills. To go work as a busboy wiping tables. My mom thought it was a huge failure at first. But I think the younger community that is coming out, I know we're trying to provide them schooling to support them, but they're coming out of here, out of college, and they have this perception, which I think is really wrong, that, oh, I got a college degree, I'm going to get a manager's job. And we set them for failure when we do that, I feel like. In my case, starting from zeros, it's kind of like we talk about construction, or even she mentioned construction. It's starting from zero. You have the foundation of the schooling, which is kind of like the bricks of the house, but the house will not build itself. You need a lot of hard work to get the house all the way up. And when you're trying to employ someone, it's better to start sometimes from the ground level, entry level, because on the future, not only they're going to learn from that opportunity, they're going to humble them, but whenever you become a manager and your employees underneath you come and ask you questions and they need direction, they need advice, they need coaching or mentoring, you understand the job fully, so as you can actually be the best leader you can be. And that helped me a lot, because lately my hotel unfortunately went through a tornado a couple months ago, and it is what it is, you know. You have to call your staff, and as a leader, and you learn to care, and you have to call yourself and say, I'm sorry, you're out of a job. And working for a company that makes a difference, that cares like Hilton did for me. I got 6 job offers in less than a month. And it makes me want to work harder for them. And they know they can count on me because I'll be forever grateful for everything they took to develop me. And that's what I want the leaders to do, to find a way to connect with your employee, find out how to get to his heart, and you have him forever. You really will.
Hey. Thank you, Pedro, for sharing. It was a very beautiful story, and I think this notion of failure is such a tricky one, right? I think we're almost expected to, for the purposes of receiving donor support, everything has to be perfect with the programming, and oftentimes with young youth-led development, we're learning on the fly. We're having to develop strategies and approaches which are very complicated. We're trying to innovate from the side, and that can get tricky. And yet, we're expected to always be producing a certain standard of result. I'm curious to hear from Naadiya and Dina, too, because you both run programs that have been supported by a number of donors. Is that a pressure you feel, and maybe how have you dealt with that?
Did you ask if that's pressuring us?
Is that a pressure you feel? And and how have you responded to that challenge?
Yes, it's pressure, like constant, non-stop pressure, because and it's very nice because it's a constant challenge, and you need to have an engine that motivates you, and that's the heart of what you do. That's the engine. It's the people. We've had many ups and downs, and failure is part of success as well because it teaches you every step of the way. We have also an important part of striving over obstacles or failures is the team that is with you. And in our case, the team has been like the most important factor to overcome and strive over obstacles. But yes, of course, we have failures all the time. We can spend maybe 2-3 weeks sometimes working on a specific proposal. And then in the end, it's like nothing happened. But then we have to get on our feet again and do the next proposal. And that's how it goes. And we don't have like an assured paved way. We just have to pave it every day.
Have to adapt, have to keep pivoting and recalibrating your strategy. Great. Anything to add, Naadiya?
I think for us, we view failure as an opportunity because failure builds more resilience within a team. And it also makes you appreciate the successes. Because if you didn't have those stumbling and learning blocks, you'd think you'd be doing the right thing all the time. Whereas now you get to change strategy midway. It's very hard to admit that you have failed at something, but I think it's important to recognize that while you may have failed at a task, you're not a failure as a person or as an individual or as an organization.
Fantastic. And I think related to the challenges we're all facing, how has the global economic crisis affected your work? And feel free to take a moment and think about that. But you all represent an incredible cross-section of cultures and countries, and yet the economic conditions have been widespread. So have you sensed a difference in the way you've handled your activities? And anybody who'd like to start, maybe feel free to jump in.
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
So during the downturn, especially for NGOs who are reliant on funding, our funding comes 99% from corporate companies within South Africa. We were afraid, to say the least. But what we did was we came up with a strategy 2 to 3 years ago where we decided to change the way we asked for money and also to change the way we approach a value proposition. Because at the end of the day, companies still need to spend money on CSI, but we also wanted to make sure that they get value for money. And as an organization, if you keep your overheads low and you invest in projects, people see the authenticity of the program and the value of the program. We're creating the next generation of engineers. So that right there is a powerful statement, which is why people will continue to invest in our organization, even though there's a global economic downturn. So much so that while there was this crisis, we actually had our best financial year as an organization. So it was, seeing what was coming and adapting and reacting to the change.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love that. And I think very similar to Dina's ability to adapt on the fly. I think that's one of the advantages of small, nimble, youth-led organizations is that ability to change quickly. Other reflections on that sort of global economic crisis, knowing that this wasn't a problem that was really created by youth organizations, and yet it's one we're all kind of forced to respond to.
Yes, well, for example, in Mexico, of course, it has a very wide impact. However, we're always looking at what can be done. No, so there are lots of resources. We just need to make a real team with the different sectors, and we need to build those partnerships to actually get the resources and the actions going. We had wonderful support from the government, believe it or not, during the crisis. So I think that also is a very good thing. Not everything is bad. It's always a challenge, but there's always opportunities, as Nadia said. And so you have to think positively and think, how is it that we can get this done and moving?
And new markets are created and new ideas and new ways that you can respond to those challenges. So I think that's fantastic to hear. Other thoughts from Tanya or Pedro, or we can move on to the next question too.
Yeah, for me it was a hard crash. I mean, when the crisis came, I was at the time I had my consulting company, and it actually forced me to ask myself, what am I offering really? Because suddenly nobody was paying me. The big guys were not paying. And it was a nightmare. So I took some time off to actually relook at who I am and what I'm offering, and I started to write a book, and I started to see that actually maybe what I was offering was rubbish, really, because there was no value add. It was just great ideas, but no value add. So and it forced me into Mozambique, into the bottom of the pyramid, starting to look at products that are more for the poor communities. And that was great.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That ability to reflect and say, all right, we're going to realign everything.
Break the box. And
that was a powerful transition for you. Okay, great. And anything to add, Pedro?
I think they pretty much said, it's always about crisis come, you rise to the challenge, you find new ways. I can tell, as far as my point of view on the hotel, yes, you get crisis come, people cut the luxury, and sometimes traveling can be a luxury. Sometimes it's business, sometimes it is a luxury, is it traveling? But I can tell that my staff did not get affected. We did not get raises that year, but I prefer to not have a raise than see her getting fired next to me so as I can get my raise. Because we have a teamwork that coexists between us, that we want to see the better of all of our team members. So, but you go around and find ways to bring money inside.
And make it work, yeah. Yeah, I know for us at Tech Change, it was definitely a challenge at first, but being able to attract, we hire a lot of computer programmers, people with technical backgrounds, and I think in many ways the global financial crisis really awoke a lot of young people and saying, wait a minute, the people who do hold the reins to our financial futures aren't making the best decisions. And so we had an influx of applications of people who had the technical skills to work with us, who also had an interest, a commitment to social change. And I think that it's something we don't see a lot in education. There tends to be, you go to graduate school, you either go for computer science, or you go for international development, or you go for international relations, or modern poetry, what have you. But you don't usually think cross disciplines, and I think that kind of thinking is really critical. And that's the kind of person that we look for, and we're seeing more and more young people have that ability to look across. Yes, they know how to computer program, and they spend time in places like Mozambique, or they're from these countries. So I do think it's exciting. It's opening up new opportunities, no question. Yeah. Another question I think that has sort of been a theme for the day is sort of the balance between local impact and global impact, and this sort of pressure for youth-led organizations to be always scaling their services. If it works in a small village, it should work in every small village nearby. Or if it works, in one department at Hilton, it works at a number across a system. So, have you? How have you seen this in effect in the places where you work, and what kinds of strategies have you used to address, having that local impact, but also thinking globally?
I think I will start.
Go for it.
For example, in Mexico, we have done this program, Deportes para Compartir, with more than 45,000 children in very diverse contexts. So we know that it's a universal program. We know it's for indigenous children and for private school children and public, and they're all children. They're all learning and growing up and need these insights. So now the strategy, yes, we want to grow and we want to share what has worked very well in Mexico. We want to share it with other countries in Latin America and in US communities. So we are developing a system of social franchises, and that's our strategy.
Cool. Very neat.
Yes.
I look forward to hearing more about that. Other thoughts on this tension between global and local? Yes, Pedro.
I actually love the question. Well, I think I know that some of them are more specific to certain areas. I'm representing a company that is worldwide. That's why we call Hilton Worldwide. And it didn't start worldwide either. It started with one little hotel, 1919, 93 years ago, by one dreamer, Conrad Dream. And it takes a dream sometimes, And he was accepted by the community. And therefore, the brand grew. And it's worldwide now. So you got to that point, like, if it wasn't for the community, we wouldn't be there to start with. They hadn't supported us and accepted us. So it's time to give back. Yes, there is, where is she? She talked about how in her country, there was religion. She went up in Jordan. There you are. I don't think, I'm not sure how it works, all that. I'm not a politician, but I don't think I can go inside your country and change your culture itself. But I'm sure there is a way that we can make a difference in your country, even if it's through the kids or through someone else. And how can we create a huge impact? Like everybody says, oh, we need to scale that over there. Oh, that project worked. We have 220 people with successful stories over here today, and that's why you guys are all here. And it always comes out to, whenever you're trying to scale something or make something bigger, it comes down to marketing. And in marketing concept is very simple. You create awareness. You let people know what's going on. And we're talking about creativity. We have to find different ways. But in this case, we're talking about community, creating possibilities for the next generation. So we don't have to just create a cool commercial to say, hey, let's help and let's donate for this thing. No, you have to find a way to that local community or that country to attack them, to create an emotion out of them, and attack them through their hearts so they can participate. Some people don't have the time. They want to participate monetarily. I'm sure lots of people here would love to take a check. At the same time, they can help voluntarily because they don't have the money. Everybody can use an extra hand. And that's what Hilton did inside the community. They created a website for inside the Hilton. We call it H360, 360 because worldwide. And we share our best practice. We share our best practice. We share our bold suggestions. So there are suggestions that one team member, or it could be a housekeeper, someone in this hotel, that said, what if we did something, instead of doing this paper like this, what if we turn the paper like this? And we look, wow, how did we think of that before? And some of those practices has been changed worldwide. But also, some of the community works that has been done, some hotels saw us like, that's a great idea. I could help my community by doing that. And it was accepted. And I'm not just saying because I work for the company something. I'm saying because I stole a lot of ideas from other hotels. And I did in my hotel. And that's how we help to make an impact in our community.
That's fantastic. And I think what I like about this example so much is it's going beyond traditional corporate social responsibility. I mean, a lot of the things you're talking about are equal partnerships with the communities in which Hilton operates, and I think that's exciting to see as a company, those kinds of moves being made. Other thoughts on the global and local balance? Do you want to take a crack at it, Naadiya?
So I think for us, there's always pressure to scale as nonprofits, just because the bigger you are or the more impact you're seeing to be having, the more money you can get. And you then get into this weird cycle where you start scaling for the sake of scaling. And then you start losing some of your authenticity and some of your program objectives. So we've always taken the view that, and we have a 5-year Africa vision, where we want to be rolling out our program in the next 5 years in different African countries, because we feel that they have similar conditions to South Africa, and that it would work better. But until we don't have our home base working well enough to be able to scale, we just won't do it. And that takes quite a strong decision. I think also, and I'm going to be very blunt here, what has happened is, stuff that works in the first world, Africa's the flavor of the month. Everybody wants to be doing something in Africa, right? And so they take their programs and they get funding and they put it into Africa, and it fails horribly. And I think it's really important to have your objectives and to go in there for the right reasons.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that Tanya has been working on a book, From the Poor to the Poor, about knowledge transfer, South-South knowledge transfer, and maybe you could share a little bit about that project and where, how you see the right kinds of relationships developing from developed to developing, but also from developing to developing countries.
Okay, thanks. I think for me, the context of Mozambique really influenced the direction of what I'm trying to do. Because in Mozambique, only 10% of our population contributes to tax. So 90% is informal sector and live in rural areas. And most of them are illiterate. So it doesn't matter how many reports you write, they will not understand it, they're not interested. So what I began to do, because we do a lot of leadership development programs, we begin to say, but how does a Mozambican society communicate? How do they interact? So we began to design training models that talk to our culture. When we talk, we sit around the table. There is no gap. We take around the fire, and we tell stories. So we open our training sessions in that format. We set it around like that. We sit around the fire, and we play around with people. So we're not teaching anybody anything. We come from the assumption that they have wisdom to share. So we are only there to actually ignite that passion. And we play around with, what is your dream? And we play with communication skills. We get into a stage. People start to act. You start to see talent coming out. And that is from the basic principle of respecting and understanding that they have something to offer. And there's nothing you can give somebody who lives on a $2 a day. They live on that kind of money, and they're resourceful. So they've got more to offer than someone like myself who can come to DC and and be in this kind of forum. So we begin to create products from television programs that use drama, that use sound, that use things that touch the soul, and that's pretty much,
It's so powerful, right? Being able to start from the point that everybody has something to contribute. We try and do that in our online classes too. Really create those lateral links, and every class we do online is an organic co-creation of learning experience in many ways. And if you can do that in person, online, using technology as a medium too, that's really where we want to be moving. I think in terms of education. But other thoughts on this front. I wanted to also ask, let's see here, about, I guess, maybe a question about the role of technology in your work. I have obviously lots of thoughts about this, but I'm curious to hear. We've heard a lot today about video games. We've heard about mobile phones. I like to tell people that mobile phones are now available in about 90% of the world has coverage of mobile phone, and about 30% have access to internet. So that number, that's changing incredibly fast. So how have you seen technology influencing your work? We also talked a little bit about social networks today. We've got 3 out of 5 iPads on the panel here. That's the majority iPad panel. So yeah, I didn't see any others up here all day, so that's exciting. That's version 1.0. So yeah, any thoughts related to technology that you might want to share, and also reflective of the day, what we've heard from others?
I think that in Africa, especially, technology is completely changing the way we do business. Infrastructure has been slow to move with, so our economies are just growing too fast. So for example, we aren't implementing infrastructure in time, and so technology has taken over and has bridged the gap between our ability to build up our economies from an infrastructure perspective versus our ability to do business. And it's really wonderful to see young people engaging more in technology, in social media. And, you know, and this is where I find the breakdown between corporates and young people. So for example, young people are all on Facebook. They're all on Twitter. I've been working with a company and they're advertising jobs. And I said, well, we're going to post it on our Facebook page. And they're like, no, sorry, we don't do social media. And I was like, you don't do social media and you wonder why you can't fill your skills gap. Okay, this is you know, lesson 101. You need to get a social media presence.
I'm going to tweet that right now.
Please tweet that, yeah. I'm not going to mention the company's name. But, you know, and it's that kind of thing. So, you know, young people are moving with the times. They, you know, you said today that 2-year-olds are learning to use touch screen and stuff like that. I think I'm now too old to be able to use some of the stuff. I look at my, like, these new phones and I'm like, what does this do? And I need to find a 2-year-old to help me now. So, you know, we need to, as industry, move with the times to be able to meet those challenges.
Fantastic. I think that's very spot on. Other thoughts, technology and how it's impacted your work or hasn't impacted your work?
Like, I believe that technology will never substitute human contact, right? And I'm a very big believer in that. However, of course, technology can help you tremendously as a tool to reach whatever objective you may have. So, for example, now we have a new operational model in order to scale. And to do it with the highest of qualities, we are training new local facilitators through technology, through an IDPC platform. And that is a way that we can combine technology with the human contact. So half of the new training is through this technological tool. And it's been amazing. We're so surprised to, I see someone that I've never met in my life tell me the story, our story of our program. And this is all because of the technological tool that we're using. So
that's fantastic to hear.
Hope.
Well, and I'm glad you made the distinction between technology and the human element, because we like to say a lot in our courses that technology is an amplifier of human intent. If your theory of change or your program design is flawed, technology will help you get in the wrong direction a lot faster. So something to think about. Other thoughts? Pedro?
I want to develop a little more based off those two amazing girls over here. Or women. I was trying to be polite and made it feel like, oh, but it's like, yes, I don't have an iPad. I write, as you guys can see. But if you think the 2-year-old kid that can do, like Andrea Taylor mentioned earlier, her granddaughter can use the iPhone. When I was 6 years old, I could use the VCR. My mom could not. But we have, like, Hilton has associated with every media that you can imagine to spread the word. We are with Twitter, Facebook, Foursquare, like you name it. We are attacking and we are spreading the word out there. So as we can spread the light and warm hospitality, which is Conrad's dream, but we are gonna keep. The reason we keep getting numbers out there and employees and creating jobs is because, like she said, there is no computer that is going to replace a human contact. And we are not selling only rooms, we're selling memorable experience. We want people to leave the hotel, and in 5 years, they're not going to remember what kind of TV they had on their room. They're going to remember how our staff made them feel. And if we can engage them and make them care, they're going to create amazing experiences out there. And that's what we want, that young, like, eager to, like, they want to make a difference, youth to participate.
Fantastic thoughts. Yeah, I completely agree. And Tanya, you've actually worked with the Ministry of Telecommunications, Transportation in Mozambique. Any wisdom or thoughts related to technology based on what we've talked about today?
Yeah, and it diverges a little bit from everything they've said.
Great.
In the sense that we define technology from the Greek definition of art. Mm-hmm. And technology being an art, in Mozambique, probably only 10% have got these things. The rest doesn't even, like, seriously, it's far-fetched. So what we try to bring out is the artist in every individual, and we say, how can we use that art to communicate? So we're trying to influence government and other private sectors to begin to use marketing that can dramatize their story. For example, the Hilton story is 93 years and all of that, but not telling the Hilton story from just telling the story, like, impact and saying, showing that image of this young guy who started from nowhere and, and then he started to, so inspiring other people through storytelling, be it government, companies, you name it, to articulate a vision. So, yeah.
I think that's fantastic, and I wanted to share just two sort of final thoughts on technology before opening up to the audience for your questions. The first is with Tech Change. Everything that we've done in terms of building our website and a custom platform, none of that would have been possible 5 years ago. And if you look at how fast the world of web development has evolved in those 5 years, as young people, we've been able to take advantage of incredible potential of online communities to use other people's code and build off of it and end up with products and delivery mechanisms that, again, 5-10 years ago would not have been possible. So very exciting to see that acceleration. I think more young people can now learn online computer programming skills. Some of the greatest innovation in online learning is actually taking place on websites where you can learn computer programming for free, all self-paced. And so I think when one thinks about the world and about developing tech skills, that's certainly an exciting realization. And the second point was to respond to an earlier panel today talking about games and video games. And some of you may have thoughts on this too. I'm an avid gamer. I like video games. But I will say that I've noticed there are a lot of organizations, NGOs, companies who've tried to build video games to influence behavior or social change, and they've failed abysmally. And the reason for that we've seen is just a very hard thing to do. It's if you think about the cost to develop games, if you think about balancing a social mission with making it fun and enjoyable. There have been very few good examples of doing this right, and yet organizations have spent quite a bit of money to invest in these projects. So I think the same can be said for mobile apps and whatever the latest sexy technology is. A lot of times the best approach is to really understand the community that you're working with, what is the technology they already have, and then working with them to help identify a solution for some kind of implementation. Okay, so I think I'd like to open it up to the audience for some questions. I think we'll let's group them in maybe 3 or 4 questions at a time, and then we'll direct them accordingly. We've got a question here.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Vignoles, and I'm with IYF, and I want to say thank you to the panelists. Very inspiring. Always great to hear the youth voice, and usually always the most interesting and funny and serious at the same time. My question is for all of you, but it's a theme that Pedro touched on, but it's also a theme that Rana brought up and other people have talked about. And it's under the guise or under the name of, say, maybe youth entitlement in the developed world or culture of shame in the Middle East. But that is really about how do you teach young people, or how do you incentivize young people to accept jobs that they often perceive to be below them. And you touched on it, Pedro, when you said, now you're a food and beverage manager, you started as a busboy, or other people have talked about plunging toilets. I myself started as a hostess at the Denny's restaurant. So, but now you see a lot of young people not willing to take on positions that they perceive themselves to be above or better than. And I particularly think this is a youth issue. And I'm curious for all of you guys, what your response is to that. How would you incentivize your peers to accept jobs that they may think are below them?
That's a fantastic question, Lindsay. I might, let's start with that, and if folks have an idea, feel free to jump in.
Since I guess I brought it up there first, I'll start again. Let's put it this way. I'm very blessed. I had a great influence on my grandparents. And we're talking about how the newer generation is going to bring all the cool young stuff on it. And like we said, it's a partnership. It has values, you know. They may bring a fresh mind and tell you how to use the iPads. But we're talking about youth. But we have to think that a youth is affected by our childhood. The parents are coming out and say, oh, I'm not going to do that to my daughter like my mom did to me. I'm going to let my daughter have whatever she wants. And I'm not saying that nobody's spoiling the kids, although there is some. It's a matter of you teach them at home right values. But if they come to us and they don't, and we see the talent on the person, and you're going to give them a lower job, you as a leader, not a manager, or the leader, you're going to show them that there is a goal and there is a timeline and there is a way to get there. And show them there is a progress being made. And as long as they see they have something to look forward to, I truly believe, and that's what happened to me. I was blessed to have amazing mentors. And even if sometimes I thought, oh, I could do that job before, I pushed myself to learn the job before the job was available for me.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it. The leadership's got to be strong, right? I think part of the challenge, disillusionment some young people feel, is that notion that the people who are making decisions aren't being responsible, and what do they have to look forward to if they buy into a system like that? Other thoughts with respect to incentivizing those early jobs, taking jobs beneath them?
Sure, so we deal a lot with this sense of entitlement. The problem is we're living in an age of instant gratification, right? You want to message someone, it's instantaneous. You want to speak to anybody, instantaneous, right? So when young people get out of the university or your school environment, they think they're just going to walk into a CEO's position. And this is why education at school level is so important. My first job when I graduated as an engineer was folding up drawings and stamping them for construction. That's all I did for like a week and a half until I was competent enough to be able to move on to the next task. And I think it's stories like, Chris, your story about how you started as the plumber, right? And now you're the CEO. I think it's maybe an African thing where we believe in storytelling as a really powerful medium, but every time we run a workshop with girls, we have at least 4 people on the stage talking about a story about how, almost like rags to riches, and not just I started here and now I'm the CEO. I started here, I had to work through all these other really bad things to get a really great thing. And it's important to make sure that people don't just hear about the success, but the failure along the way and the journey along the way.
Anything to add, Dina? Yeah.
Sure. It's, for example, in our case, I think we created our dream jobs. And that's also a very important thing to promote for youth, so that they know that they can also create their jobs. One thing is to train or give skills to young people, and a very different one is to let them know that you can build something together with them. And that's what I've done with my team. We are creating this together. This dream job is not only now my dream job, but it's our dream job. And we're working hand in hand very, very hard every day to make it possible.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. If you choose your passion and you want to see it through, it is not easy. And so how to communicate that sense of hard work that's really required to people who are just starting out can often be a challenge.
I mean, it's the same thing. It's in our leadership training programs, this is the space we get to interact with the youth. And the main thing we emphasize is something that Chris was talking about when he said, with technical skills we can teach. We just hone in onto the values. We use basic examples and we say to everybody in the room, for example, who is the one person that influenced you the most in your, since you grew up? And they'll talk about their mothers, their fathers. They'll talk about emotional people who really inspired them and they were hard workers. And we then say, put a mirror in front of you. Could you emulate that person? And from that perspective, they begin to be in touch with their sense of self and how they could contribute to the bigger world around them and how the country needs them from a bigger perspective. And then we use examples. I mean, share experiences to say, when I went to the Ministry of Planning, I had a salary cut of like everybody in my family thought I was crazy. It was government and I'd been in the private sector. And, not so long ago, I did an assignment for a company in South Africa, which is called Moosajee Vision, and I was doing an assignment as a secretary. And everybody was like, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "Well, it's a revolution company. They're going to do big things." So you share that experience, and people begin to say, "Okay, the small things, the small steps," and
Fantastic. Okay, let's get a couple more questions here. Yes, gentleman in the front here.
Thank you. I'm Arshad from Pakistan. First of all, appreciations and to our panelists. They are extraordinary people. And my question on the personal side, but not too personal. The question is, when did you realize that you are different than your young fellows? And if you realize so, what was that ability, attribute, your practice that made you realize that you are a different person? And obviously, all of you are extraordinary people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does somebody have that moment? Pedro, you got it.
Okay, let's. I'm a gay guy that worked for a company on the Midwest. It was not wrong, and I had an HR team to back me up, but it was frowned upon. I work for a company that embraces diversity, and the best thing that I can tell you is, it's not what you are, is who you are, and only being true to yourself will be able to provide genuine hospitality and make things happen. And that doesn't affect my work quality. And honestly, the guests did not seem to care at all. They actually love me, so I'm. Thank you.
This is a fun panel.
I'm just saying, we're not different, we're unique. There's a difference there.
I like that. I like that distinction. Yeah, Dina.
I see there's so much potential in every young person I meet. So I don't see myself as better or worse. I see myself as just one of them. And I think that potential is something. It's what you make with that potential, because it's there. We're all thirsty to be interested in what's happening around us and getting involved. Sometimes you just don't know. You know what you want to do something. Sometimes you don't know what you want to do, and sometimes you know what you want to do and you don't know how. So it's important to have channels and spaces for young people to actually make the best of their potential. And that, I think, for example, IYF is one of those channels that really pushes you forward to reach the potential that you have.
Great, yeah. Naadiya.
So my parents always told me I was special, but in a good way. So maybe I always knew. No, I'm kidding. I think everybody has a limited potential, and it's converting that potential into a measurable action. My friends call me an overachiever. I call them underachievers, right? That's just because they're lazy. They don't want to get involved in stuff. There's so much. I feel that it's a responsibility that everybody takes on. I have a certain skill set, and I can do as much as I want to with this skill set. And it's really up to me to do that. And I think that's a really important realization, that I've got all these things to offer the world, that it's almost selfish of me not to. So yeah, that's the way I think about things.
I love that, yeah.
You want personal? I'll give you personal. You want me to? I'll moderate it. I think I had achieved all these degrees over time, and the ego was starting to take over as well. I am this, I am that. I've got a master's in this and that, and then I had a baby, and she died in my arms. And when that clock ticked, when the doctor said to me, that child is dead, she's gone, I looked at her and I said, I realized at that moment that I had no control over anything in life. And I said, it could be me. I could have been the one dying. So from that moment on, I said, what can I give of myself? As if it was my last day. Yeah.
Dina, did you want to share? Or you already did?
I want to share
Yeah.
a personal story, very personal.
You asked. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I am truly committed and truly passionate about people and about doing something that drives change, and that's what I'm doing. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I finished my university. It's not like I was 5 and I said, I'm going to do this, and these are going to be the steps, A, B, C. It wasn't like that. It was just more of having my eyes wide open and truly being true to myself, because I love children and I love sports, and I believe that everybody can be involved in the way that we've found. There are many ways.
Great, and I think too, I'd like to think that it's a trend. I think there are more and more people who really are trying to find their passion, influence social change, create community in the places where they work, and I think, and that's exciting to see. I don't think it's becoming less unique, and that's something we should all be excited about. Okay, let's take a few more questions. Maybe let's group a couple this time here. Yes, right here. I see a hand up. Let's start here, and then yeah, Mike's coming.
Hi there. My name is April. I'm the campaigns manager from DoSomething.org. And it's funny, Doug Becker earlier today said that this conference was so popular to get into that people were lobbying him. I'm one of those people, so not to turn this into a Lobby is Anonymous meeting, but you know, it's interesting. One of my roles and one of my hats at DoSomething.org, which is an organization that works with teens across the country to create cause campaigns and get them involved in social change, is to actually grow our international affiliate program and expand across the country. And as I've done this, I've talked with a couple of our other affiliates just about media perceptions of young people. So you saw things like the London riots last year, and similarly, you saw Occupy Wall Street and Occupy DC, although it wasn't as big as Wall Street. And so I was just curious, from the young voices perspective, what do you think we can do to break the media perceptions that young people are lazy and apathetic and don't care? What's a couple action strategies we can do around that point?
Great, thank you. So let's hear from a couple more questions, then we'll group them together right there, and then we'll come up here to the front.
Hi, my name is Mia Castro. I'm from the Philippines. Thank you very much for your wonderful insights. I just have a comment and a question. My comment is, throughout the day, I think we've been hearing a lot of wonderful ideas about how to engage and educate the youth. I think one thing that we should also always try to deliberately include is really, how do we protect the youth, and how do we use resources that we have to protect the youth by, letting them know about their rights and letting them know about the issues that are real. Where I come from, in the Philippines, a lot of our youth could be very much great candidates for opportunities, employment opportunities that we talk about in this room. But at the same time, a huge majority really face other realities, such as being very vulnerable to other things, and like issues of sexual abuse, issues of becoming juvenile delinquents, or issues of sexual exploitation, especially in very poor rural communities. So now here comes my question. In the communities and in the countries that you live in, what are the other big issues like this that affect the youth, in addition to creating employment opportunities for them? And what role do you see as youth leaders, or in youth-led organizations, in advocating and bringing these issues to fore. As I know we all believe that youth leaders could be great voices indeed in coming up and bringing these issues into mainstream dialogues, and at the same time coming up with real and lasting solutions. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Another question in the back there? Yeah. And then we'll get to, yeah.
Yes, I just had sort of a simple question. What do you think is missing? What would you like that you don't have that would help you do what you do better?
Ooh. It's an interesting question. Okay, well, maybe we'll start there, and then we'll do your question next. Let's do that. Who's ready for that one? That's.
Which one?
Which
one of the three?
What do you say it again? I think that's great. So think about that question. Then we heard two other questions, just as a reminder here. You know, how do we combat the media trying to paint youth as lazy? From April at Do Something. And then what are the other big issues affecting your local communities? You want to take a crack at this, Naadiya? You're smiling.
I'm just thinking, what do I really need? More hours in a day, maybe?
Yeah.
24 is just not enough these days. But I think more on a serious note, and I think this is generally what youth actually do need, is we've spoken about voices a lot today. What we actually need is ears, because we have voices. We just need people to listen to us. And then besides the ears, we also need champions. Because there is this perception that because you're young, that you don't have the experience. And I take this back to being in engineering, right? If you're in engineering and you're not, 55 years old with like 40 years of experience or something, nobody's really going to take you seriously because everybody wants this particular type of engineer coming to the fore. They get me and they're kind of shocked and they're not really sure that I can do the job well. And I think young people face that challenge a lot because you look young, and I'm hoping that I look younger than most. I'm 27, but I'm hoping that I look slightly younger than that. But I get into the room and I've been told, well, you look 18, so that was a compliment. I don't know if I still look 18, but I think what we need is champions who are people like Bill, who actually do speak to the youth, with the youth, for the youth. And we need more champions to be able to take our voices and carry them to the right ears so that the opportunity for action becomes an action.
I love that. Okay, great. And so a couple questions on the table here. Do you want to take the what do you need question or media? How do we combat?
I want to take the right there in the end, but she's talking about how do you protect the youth and how do you give them a chance? She said ears, and that's a great thing. You guys even clap because you guys agree with it. But when was the last time each one of you guys, as a leader, took the time to talk and get to know, to see what is a burden in one of your team members? You'll be surprised how much you can help, maybe by hearing or maybe by giving your experience and your advice. Sometimes it takes someone to believe on a person, for the person to want to be a better person. And if they think that there is someone that even if they don't get it at home, they have that person. He believes in me. He's working with me. He's coaching me. He's making me, we're talking about creating job for employment for youth. And the more jobs we can create, the better. But if each one person, each one leader, within the employers they find one person that they think they could create a connection, create them a leader, then we are creating leaders that are going to pass that to the next person, because I want to mentor people because someone mentored me. I want to coach people because someone took the time to do that for me. I'm grateful to them. I'm loyal to them. And I want to see the day that I'm going to meet them 10 years later or 20 years later. They're going to be like, by the way, this is my new employee. He's amazing. I'm working with them. He's going to be big someday. You know, that will make my day to know that not only I made someone successful, but that is going to keep on carrying on for generations, because it only gets worse as time comes by. The resources, the jobs, if the population keep on growing like was brought up on the very first question, but at least to know that if we lose some of our values, which hopefully we won't, that there is still people right there to keep people in track.
Fantastic, yeah.
Okay.
And then the last question around perceptions of youth in the media, how we combat it. Do one of you want to take that on, or you can answer one of the other questions?
Sure. I think the three questions are somewhat related, because what do we need to make better what we already are doing? In one word, for me, it would be partnerships. Partnerships from equal to equal. From partners that believe in each other and that are working for the same purpose, and with a true belief in the other part. So how do you protect youth? I think through those partnerships with youth. Youth are doing and developing programs to protect youth and to get information to where is needed. So it's like a virtuous cycle. And the question about media, of course, you can bring media to speak to youth that are very active and that can speak about other youth that we know are active as well, because we work with those youth. And there's a lot to celebrate, and we just need an opportunity to have, as Naadiya said, our voices heard. And after hearing our voices, taking some actions, not in 5 years or in 10, but now. The moment is now.
I like that's a great thought to share. Anything else, Tanya, on your end? Or?
It's really the same. It's a summary of what they've said. It's, you know, one of the things that I strongly believe in the Mozambican case, I'm very passionate about my country, is every youngster that I interact with, once I have ignited a sense of identity, that for me is enough. From that youngster who knows who they are, they were able to create those new products, those new markets, you name it. So, but the way to do it is not to say that, you know, you've got an identity. So it's the model that we use for training. We bring them to see, they see themselves actually performing and doing things, and they look at them, oh, did you do that? And then we reinforce it, you're good, you're just you're good, and that's it. We just keep saying you're good, and that's how we protect them. We're telling them they're good, you're good, and reinforcing that. And what do I need right now? If I can get some money to tell the world, you know, more youngsters that they're good, I just want to tell them they're good.
Okay, great. So I think we're going to have one more round of questions, and then we'll wrap up a little early. So let's try and capture. I know up here we had.
I have to say that I saw him lifting his hand every single time I asked questions.
Where? Show me.
Yes.
Okay.
Andrew
we'll get these two. We'll try and get 4 here, and then we'll do.
I just feel bad. I see this every time he goes in.
Right.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi. Firstly, congratulations. I'm Andrew from Youth Business International in London and various other parts around the world. You are obviously already successful, and from everything you've said, you're going to be even more successful in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
On the basis of we're looking at opportunities, if you go back to your old schools now, and you are talking to 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds, yes, what is the one piece of advice each of you is going to give to that young person to make sure they achieve their opportunities and their potential?
Wow. Love it. That's a great question.
That's a great question.
Okay, let's get a couple more here, and then we'll answer collectively.
My name is Maria. I'm coming from the Youth Foundation in Portugal. As the youth unemployment is a global issue, if you were Minister for Youth Affairs, which were the 2 measures you would implement immediately?
I'm sorry, would you repeat?
If you were Minister for Youth Affairs in a country, which were the 2 measures you would implement?
Good question. Okay, fantastic. Let's try and take 1 or 2 more too. Anybody else have a burning question? Maybe one more in the back there, and then we'll have the panelists respond.
Well, I think every single person of you is here because you are young. But as we know, youth is temporal. It's going to end one day. Have you guys... Seriously.
Depressing.
Seriously.
Oh, God.
Have you guys ever thought about when you want to stop being young? I know I haven't myself, but I don't know about you guys. I think basically, in essence, the question is that when do we hand it over and make more space for younger people? And have you actually given this thought? Because for me, the definition of old is everybody which is older than me. You know, I'm still young. I'm still in that bracket, so...
A fantastic round of questions here. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the panel. You've got a couple options. One is advice for 14 and 15-year-olds who are at your old high school. Another is other end of the spectrum. If you were a minister, what 2 measures would you introduce? And when, what is that threshold between youth and adulthood, and how do we deal with that transition?
Okay, so I'm gonna start. I'm gonna take the last question. My dad always says that he's 19 with like 32 years of experience. And every year that number of years of experience changes. So he's 19 until he dies, which I think, you've got to stay young and stay vibrant. But handing over is not at a particular point. When I started, we made sure that we had a team that would come behind us so that we could train and mentor and impart all the learnings and the skills that we had. And we constantly do that through our organization. And I think that's really important, is that you make sure that you're training and developing the next generation constantly, so that you never have that problem on, oh wait, what is my succession plan? I'm too old, I'm no longer, what is the threshold, 35 or 30? Where do you draw that line? So I think that's really important. I think maybe I'll answer the minister question as well. 2 things that I'd implement, and I'm going to take this from the South African experience. I would commission a panel of young people first that is not political at all. In South Africa, I'm not sure if you've read the news and the media, but what has happened, and this is just my personal perspective, is that the youth issues has been hijacked and highly politicized by certain political parties, and now there's infighting over trivialities instead of really dealing with the issues. So I think firstly I'd unpoliticize the youth issue and start really looking at what youth actually need and have a panel to talk about it. And then instead of just talking about it and creating enabling policies, which we are fantastic at doing in South Africa, I will make sure that we have an implementation strategy that actually gets done.
Fantastic. And are there others of you who have advice for those 14 and 15-year-olds who are at your old high schools? What would you tell them based on where you're sitting today?
First of all, I would listen to them.
Yeah.
First. But I would like to share maybe in my case, what helped me is believe in your dreams. However that sounds, maybe it's too cliche, but it's true. It's really true. If you believe in your dreams, and then it's not enough only to believe in your dreams, but you have to work hard to get them come to reality, and not only work hard, but work in strong teamwork to actually achieve them. So I would say that to the 15 years old and older and younger. After youth, well, my grandma is 89 years old, and she's the youngest person I know. So it's very relative. But I agree with Naadiya. Of course, there is not one set time. It's always about developing people in your team and beyond your team, so that there can be like a virtuous cycle of advancement and progress.
I'd like to meet your grandmother. She sounds like a lot of fun.
She's amazing. She's amazing.
Tanya, advice, or if you were a minister, maybe what you worked in government, what would be some legislation you would pass?
I'll tell you what I told them already. But before that, I want to touch a little bit on the 14-year-old, and it's a practical example that I use with my son. He's 7 years old, and he was in grade 2 in South Africa, and he said, "Mommy, I want to be the best cricket player in the world." So we said, okay, Zimbabwe offers very good education as well, and they're very sport-oriented. So we moved into Zimbabwe, but when we got to St. John's, the only school we were ready to put him in, they said there's no space for grade 2s, and there was only space for grade 3s. And the principal said, well, we can assess him. So we went home, and I said to my son, you know, this is where life begins. You've got to be extraordinary. So life is about not doing grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. It's about doing grade 1, grade 2, skip, and you know. And I honed it into his head, and I said, Mommy and Daddy are out of this. Tomorrow morning, you're going to be with Mrs. De Bruyn, and you're going to have to prove that you are extraordinary. It starts now. So 10 times 10, 11 times 12, da-da-da-da-da. We went on and on, and he made it. And this is exactly what I would say to the 14-year-olds in my previous school. You know, you've got to fail. You've got to fail. You've got to fail. You've got to be obsessed with failure. Because until such time you're ready to fail, you cannot make it in life. You just can't. So this is, for me, the main message for youngsters. Fail, and then within that failure, you've got your dream. Your dream is coming true. It's actually coming to fruition. Now, I'm the minister of... I'm not even going to say youth because it's, you know, I'm going to say I'm the Minister of Planning and Development.
Okay.
Or let's say I'm the President of Mozambique.
Let's just go with that.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop all the infrastructure development that I'm doing right now. I'm going to put a hold on it. And I'm going to say, I want to get all the talent I have in the country. I'm going to be obsessed about it. I'm going to go to the garages. I'm going to go to homes. Anybody who's playing sport, anybody who's an artist, a poet, you name it. Any art, any potential that is inherent, doesn't require mathematics, doesn't require engineering, nothing. I'm going to invest in that. I'm going to put everything I've got towards bringing that out. And until such time that is out, then I'll say, okay, let's continue with our roads.
That was a lot of fun. Okay.
I'll we have so many great speakers here. Almost they're like, can I bring something new to the table? Yes, you can always bring something new to the table. But so I'm gonna just touch base, everybody, really quick. Answering you, if I could implement, I can tell you two things right now, but I can tell one that did come to my head that I think will make a difference. I work more on vocational, on trying to find vocational programs, trying to find people the right fit for them, for the youth. So as they can be the best that they can do with the best of their talents and maximize that talents to the most, so as they can bring something new to the table. If I would tell you, if you were 14 years old, which may be in spirit, I will. But if I would tell you, I will ask you where you want to be, and I'll let you tell me, because I would listen to you. And then I will tell you, don't let anybody change your mind on that. But if it doesn't go right, don't be scared to throw everything you work for away and start from scratch, because it's worth in the end and it paid off. And last one over there, quick. You ask, when do you pass it to the next person? What makes you guys true leaders, like I said, is the capability of touching and inspiring people and wanting to make a difference. And there is no such thing as too old or too young. Some people will connect better to people that are their peers. They are like on the same age. They'll feel more approachable to them, and they will listen to that better. While some people, they want someone older to tell them because they take they want to hear the perspective of someone that has the experience. So as long as you're alive, if you can touch one person here and there and make them want to make a difference, as leaders, we will be creating a better world for our next generation.
And I think just to wrap up and piggyback off of what Pedro said, I think my advice for 14-year-olds would be never stop learning. I think we often associate young people with education, but everybody should always be learning and embracing that desire to learn. Great story. We had an application come across our desk for a tech change course a couple months ago, and I turned to my colleague. I said, "Did you see this application that came in?" It was the chief operating officer of USAID who was signing up to take a course on Twitter, how to learn Twitter. And I think that kind of commitment from older generations is exactly the kind of what we look for as young people. So I want to thank the panel here. You all were fantastic. Hopefully you had a lot of fun. And I'm going to go ahead and